Et bonjour à tous, toujours Grégory Guittard du Journal du Coin. Aujourd'hui, j'ai le plaisir de recevoir le CEO de la Fondation Helium, donc Abbé, avec qui nous allons discuter du projet Helium, de la Fondation, un petit peu plus largement de certaines de ses applications. Vous commencez à être habitués, s'ils ne sont pas activés d'office, activez les sous-titres, puisque nous allons faire cet épisode en anglais. Et donc, je commence l'anglais et on est parti. So, Abbé, hello, how are you?
Hey, good evening. How are you doing today?
I'm fine, thank you. Super. As I was saying in French, the idea of this episode is to learn a little bit about you, about your project, the foundation of Helium and everything. So maybe to start, your background seems to me really interesting. Could you tell us more about your life and how you ended up leading the Helium Foundation?
For sure, happy to. So my background's mostly been in technology. I studied math and then ended up realizing that I would probably do better writing software at some point. So I taught myself how to code. I started off with open source projects, essentially just contributing to projects and trying to convince people that I sort of could provide some value. Eventually, I started working for startups. I moved to San Francisco, the Bay Area. I grew up in New York and sort of moved to San Francisco and started working at startups. And I've been through sort of the breadth of things that can happen to startups, everything from running out of funding to getting acquired to taking a startup public and sort of everything in between, starting a few along the way myself. At this point, I'd sort of easily say that I've seen every round of funding, including all the bad ones. So yeah, so that's been my history and sort of really like my kind of honor to work for a lot of different like really great teams and work and lead really great teams. Helium kind of came mostly out of an interest that I have personally. So like before Helium, the only crypto that I ever really sort of dabbled in, used, mined anything was Bitcoin. For me, Bitcoin represents something that's really sort of fundamental and really important for, and happy to dive into sort of that at some point. But I think Helium for me also represents something that's really, really fundamental, which is really about connectivity. And I think that how I came to Helium, I was after my last company. I was at home and I was sort of experimenting with different things, and this Helium thing came around, and I bought a hotspot, and that's really the way that I started. I wasn't a part of the core team initially. I joined as a hotspot owner, and then as a multiple hotspot owner, and then someone who was mad about how he couldn't manage his hotspots using the tools that are available. I'm an
Okay.
engineer, so I started building things. So I build apps. I built an app called Mylar, which was a tool to allow you to sort of understand the performance of multiple hotspots at a time. And at some point, I think like 60% of the network was using that app to manage their hotspots rather than the core team's app. So that's I got loud enough, I guess. I started, proposing changes to economics. I wrote my first helium improvement proposal, HIP 10, back in 2019 now. And so, yeah, so like it's been a ride. Like I joined the core team. I started running the blockchain engineering function
Yeah.
and the product team, and sort of did everything else sort of as a leader in the team. The core team has kind of changed their mandate and their mission.
Mhm.
Initially it was build hardware, build the core blockchain, and then also build applications and products on top of it. The core, can talk about the history there a little bit, but they started as a non-blockchain team. They started as an IoT team.
Yeah, okay.
And
I,
so
I, I got it. Yeah. I think that the least we can say is that it's a very cool journey and evolution.
yeah,
We will try to come back to all of this, but maybe just to give some context to the audience that don't really know what you're doing at Helium, maybe starting
yep,
right at the beginning. Could you please explain us what does Helium do? How does it works?
for
And
sure.
maybe explaining a little what is LoRaWAN and things like that, because I think it's pretty useful for the context. Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, Helium as a network exists really as a way to incentivize decentralized wireless networks to form.
Mhm.
Ultimately, wireless networks traditionally are built by, traditional telcos or public institutions. And they're very, very capital intensive. And typically, you have the connectivity goes to wherever is going to pay the most, right? Roughly.
Yeah.
Helium sort of takes a different approach and says, why don't you allow an individual to provide connectivity for people and for things, with their existing backhaul that they might already have, and expand that backhaul to devices and people that might be in the area. And
so just to be clear, we're speaking, let's say, when you say connecting people, it will be something like the mobile, and when you're speaking about things, it's really like into the Internet of Things, really global.
Exactly. Sensors, and any kind of, and that's where we started. We actually started as an IoT network, and that is the largest network that exists today. Over, almost 500,000 active nodes providing coverage for IoT devices all over the world. And so, I think what's important for this kind of experiment is that there has to be an incentivization model, and that's sort of the other thing that we sort of created was, how do you incentivize new coverage before usage is there? And so we sort of created this system called proof of coverage. It's a proof of work effectively for a marketplace like this. And ultimately that's what Helium is. It's a marketplace. It's a marketplace of coverage providers and users of that coverage. LoRaWAN, happy to jump into that a little bit. LoRaWAN is the technology, is protocol that we use for the IoT network. LoRaWAN is intended to be a low power, long range, and sort of low cost network and low bandwidth network. And so very, very good for sensors primarily. So think about it as like, a GPS tracker or a water leak sensor or a air quality sensor, anything that requires, small packets of data that, at a fairly, a reasonable frequency. It could be, once a day, or it could be even, every minute, depending on the particular application. But the hardware itself is very, very inexpensive, and the backhaul needs to be very, very, very inexpensive for
because the idea, so if I understand it correctly, for example, for the IoT things, is to have, for example, a device or a sensor that is sending something, like you said, for example, one time a day, and so another sensor out there that can see that. So that's why you're searching for something that is low consumption profile. Okay, pretty cool. I've got maybe a little question. Why did you choose LoRaWAN and, for example, not the Sigfox network? Is another implementation of the IoT network?
Yeah, the Sigfox and some other sort of private networks have existed for a while. I think ultimately LoRaWAN it's a open stack. It's something that's produced by a company called Syntec, and initially it was actually acquired by Syntec. Was a French company initially, and the sort of values for us here is that it's an open stack, it's an open standard, and there was an enormous ecosystem of different kinds of sensors that existed already. And what's interesting in the history of Helium, it actually started off inventing a protocol, inventing a gateway, inventing the data plane, and also trying to incentivize a network at the same time. That's a very ambitious task, right? I think one of the things and this is before I joined the sort of network and the team. I think the thing that the team realized was, let's focus on using open source protocols and using sort of very, very common infrastructure that's out there, and integrating into a pre-existing network. And certainly not at the scale that we've seen now, but certainly was seeing the beginnings of that. Would love to. We wanted to plug into something.
Okay, no, really interesting. Thank you. You mentioned that Helium used to have its own blockchain. What were the main reasons behind the move from having your own blockchain to just using Solana? I say just using, it's not really correct, but you've got the idea.
Of course, yeah. No, I think that just using Solana is actually, as funny as it sounds, that was the goal. When we started back in, the design started in 2018, and the launch of the network was 2019. So in 2018, there weren't really a lot of choices. The team looked at, can we run a Bitcoin miner on these hotspots? That's probably not a good idea. Could we use Ethereum? At the time, we just had Ethereum layer 1, and sort of we kind of saw the same problems, cost and issues around finality and things like that get solved over time, I think, in all of these ecosystems. So it made sense to start our own chain. It was a tough decision, and definitely has a lot of cost, because you have to not only think about building a wireless network, you also have to build block production, transaction validation, consensus, like all the sort of really, really hard parts of running a chain, plus doing the rest of it, right? And in retrospect, was it the right decision at the time? Absolutely, right? Given what we knew, of course it was. But should we have maybe considered moving sooner? Maybe. Like actually, there was a time that every single Helium hotspot was a full blockchain node, chain following, validating of all blocks and all transactions, and in consensus occasionally. So we had to solve some real problems around the P2P, through firewalls and NAT and things that are just like really hard to do when you have a 100,000 node network.
And okay, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Maybe you could explain us how the general network architecture is done currently. I don't know the different types of nodes, the device, as you said, but maybe also the role of the oracles. Have I CAD on things, but I got another question. Sorry, why did you choose Solana and not another network, for example?
Sure. I mean, I can answer that one first, and I think ultimately, and I wrote this post like 9-10 months ago, I think, if I remember correctly. That sort of like talk through the sort of different things that we were considering. Solana for us, number one, it's fast and cheap. That's actually really, really important for us. We have, when we migrated to the Solana network, we had to migrate 700,000 wallets, over 700,000 wallets, actually, almost 1 million hotspots. Like they need to be represented somewhere on the chain, and 3 tokens. And like, that's, one of the things that we care about very much is user experience. And the experience for a majority of users, like 80% of the users, was you open the wallet app that's in the app stores, it spins for a day, and then 11 hours later, it said your tokens are available on Solana. Like it just worked, right? And that's that kind of magical experience really is, there's no such thing as magic, right? Like you actually have to do some engineering to make that work. And so I think that's ultimately, what we tried to create. We tried to create that kind of perfect user experience as well as we could. And I think we were, I would say that we're a success. Like we have folks that are actively using our network, are now exploring other parts of the Solana ecosystem. And, things like, key compatibility was a thing that went into our, into that decision, right? Like the fact that we use the Edwards curve for all of our wallet accounts on the Helium L1, and the fact that we, so does Solana, like meant that there was no need for a bridge. It was just a very, very simple state transition. So like your wallet on Helium just worked on Solana, right? And that's actually really, really powerful. That prevents bridge risk. It prevents like the potential for someone like standing up helium-migration. I trust me, it's sure definitely it.com, and you put your wallet in and you get rugged. Like that's just not possible if you have this sort of easy transition.
I totally understand. Okay.
Yeah, and so like that was an important thing for us. The dev community in Solana is also enormous. I mean, I think I sort of listed like 8 or 9 things in that blog post, but like I think these are all really, really important. This dev community thing is something that came up very recently. A couple of days ago, there was a random proposal from a lending protocol called Mango on Solana. That's basically, we want to support HNT, and this was an absolute surprise to everyone in the Helium community, but pretty cool. Like
Mongo is a really cool product. Yeah, I used to use it. So pretty fun. Okay, super cool.
Yeah, so like that, that kind of serendipitous interaction with other communities just happen. I think it's pretty awesome. I think Jupiter, which is a swap protocol or swap UI on Solana, and it sort of it's similar to like 1inch and Ethereum, like sort of aggregates a lot of different swaps that are available on Solana. I think they saw like I think they're the 2 weeks after the launch, I think they saw something like a 50% increase in user activity just because we brought 700,000 wallets over, basically, right? So I think I think we definitely, like, obviously there's a lot of good that we were hoping for in Solana. Like we didn't have a smart contract framework on the L1. They did, like all these things are sort of really important. And I think, together, I think it was the right decision.
Yeah, you mentioned also the several Helium-rated tokens. Maybe could you explain to us how do they work and what's the relationship each of them?
Yeah, so the core token is HNT, and why HNT is important is that HNT is what you use ultimately to use the network. For HNT, you take let's say HNT, you have one single token. You want to transfer data on the IoT network. You need to pay in data credits, and data credits are sort of, that's the second token that I'll introduce. The data credits are a fixed, sort of stable asset. You, at any time, if you want to pass a single packet of data on the IoT network, you need to pay 1 data. And so that's, it's important for any user that, your costs are ultimately fixed, right? Like that's really, really important. Similarly, like if you want to transfer a gigabyte on the cellular network, you have to, you pay 50 cents in US. For that
Mm-hmm.
transfer. And that's
Mm-hmm.
sort of fixed in the network rules and, modifiable through governance, of course, but it's sort of set to network rules such that, there's some predictability in cost. One data credit, just to think about this, like in the IoT network, if you want to pass, 100,000 messages, you pay $1, right? And that's sort of the conversion ratio. So like it's an easy way to think about like your cost over time. So that's the relationship between HNT and data credits. Essentially, you burn HNT at the Oracle price to get the equivalent amount of data credits, and now you can use those sort of dollar-denominated data credits for using these networks.
Okay.
So that's simple core sort of part of the economics. One of the things that we realized that made sense, and that we proposed to the ecosystem last year, and was supported by the community, was this idea that as we sort of expand into multiple networks, each network might want to have their own sovereignty, and there needs to be a way to reward users of those networks, and also a way to govern users of those networks, and have a token that represents those sort of rewarding and governance rights and other utility that might exist on those networks, and then allow each of those networks to sort of define what the utility of those tokens are. So 2 new tokens were created, one for each of the two networks that were being thought of at the time. One was IoT, that was already existing, and the other was mobile. And mobile is really this sort of new cellular network that was launched last year. Each of these tokens have their own tokenomics, but they are ultimately a right to redeem the underlying HNT that's represented in each of those. So, each of these 2 networks earn HNT based on their usage of data credit, right? So like it's ultimately tied to the actual utility of each of those networks, and they're kind of in cooperation, competition with each other. And every epoch, a certain amount of HNT gets sent to the IoT network, and a certain amount of HNT gets sent to the mobile network, and it's based on what we call a DAO utility score, like a sort of utility score of each of those networks.
Okay, it's a very interesting and I think a pragmatic way of working. Okay, super cool.
Yeah, and it also allows for future sort of networks to come in as well. So we sort of thought about the fact that a Wi-Fi network might want to join, a VPN network might want to join. There's a lot of different sort of options out there.
Okay, super. You mentioned some, but what are your favorite use cases among those that currently exist on the Helium network? And for example, you mentioned the possibility of extending to VPN networks or things like that. I don't know, do you think that you would be able to develop some application really on the VPN side, or internet privacy preservation, for example?
Yeah, so the current applications are, on IoT, and new applications are forming around cellular. I think, future applications and future networks that could exist. I think VPN is really interesting. I do have a question that is always on the back of my mind, which is, how many users actually want VPNs? Like, I personally want one. I know that I do, and I'm absolutely pay for one. If I could figure out if I could trust it, of course. But I'm also an engineer, and I'm the kind of person that will stand up VPN landing sort of servers in different data centers around the world, depending on whether I travel, right? But I'm not the typical user here. The typical user for VPNs are folks that are in areas that they're concerned about either their ISP or their government being able to track what they're doing on the internet, and they sort of believe in their sovereignty on the internet. And I think it's a really, really, really important thing that we promote. And look, I live in America, but we have ISPs sort of data mining everything that we do in our home internet connections. It's actually why I really appreciate the fact that my internet service provider doesn't do that at all. And I think that's actually important, that sort of the data that I am passing over their lines are still sort of mine. And I think it's important that sort of I still have control over that. And that's really where VPNs, I think, are more practical for the American use case, certainly. And I think that I think people are naturally concerned about these things. I think the Helium network can certainly support something like that, and we've talked to teams out there that have considered joining the Helium network, and being a part of the sort of economics of the Helium network. But nothing has really come to be. I think ultimately it's about is there an addressable market? Is it a real practical application? And can you have trust in this new system? I think people are still developing these things. So I think it'll take time there. Wi-Fi, I think, is another interesting one. And for Wi-Fi, there's 2 kinds of Wi-Fi these these days. The most sort of common use case for all of us is you go to a hotel or you go to a coffee shop and you ask for the Wi-Fi password and you sort of connect your laptop to it. This is sort of like, I'll call it the cafe Wi-Fi, right? Like the cafe Wi-Fi, like the user experience is pretty terrible. Like, let's be honest, like, having to go, through a captive portal system and all that stuff. And I think we can definitely like improve that. I think community Wi-Fi is also really interesting, where an entire town might want to be able to provide wireless access to every single resident or, tourist as well that comes through. I think that's also a kind of an interesting use case. And I think Wi-Fi probably has a lot of value, and I can imagine that being brought to the Helium network soon. The other use case for Wi-Fi, which I also think is really, really important, is the cellular use case for Wi-Fi. All of our phones are now able to connect to these, this is not nefarious in any way, like these sort of hidden SSIDs that all of the carriers are actually broadcasting.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why our cellular service works very well when we're inside of an airport or inside of a train tunnel. Often, you don't have just typical LTE signals down there. You actually have Wi-Fi signals down there, depending on, what metropolitan area you're in. And I think that's using this sort of Wi-Fi authentication mechanism. It's called Passpoint. And using that sort of authentication mechanism, and the fact that we all have, or many of us have eSIMs on our phones, that kind of like token, I think we are at that state, sort of the technology cycle, where that'll become the way that most of us connect to the internet on our phones. A combination of eSIMs plus Wi-Fi, potentially Wi-Fi 6E, authenticated over Passpoint, on Helium hotspots deployed all over the world. That's really my dream, which is ultimately like my Helium wallet just has an eSIM application. I press a button and now that eSIM just works anywhere in the world.
Okay, I got it. More broadly on the, let's say, classical Internet of Things side, the Internet of Things has been widely criticized. People are often concerned about the usability, the security, the privacy. Obviously, Helium is not part of the problem at all, but I think you might have an interesting opinion on the matter. So I don't know, what do you think about these problems tend to hinder the adoption of the IoT device? And maybe that means a smaller market for Helium for now.
So I actually think we're part of the solution in a way, which is, maybe a little presumptuous of me. Like, a lot of the concerns around Internet of Things devices, there's lots of memes around, the Internet of Things devices that are out there. I think you're probably correct. Like, do I really want to know when my washing machine is, like done with the cycle? Probably not. Like, I don't need to get a push notification on that. But do I really need to know, that it has been running or hasn't started or something like that? Potentially yes, right? And I think, or do I want to know, like, over time that I, spent, that I'm washing my, my clothes like every single day or 5 times a day or whatever. When we had kids, I feel like we were doing the wash like 3-4 times a day or something. But yeah, like I think that that sort of aggregate data is actually really, really useful. And I think so. The memes are probably, there's some shred of truth in these things, and I don't want to like discount them. And that's the beautiful thing about memes, right? Memes actually come from something real, and then there's hyperbole that's added onto it, of course, right? And so I think that is so we should acknowledge that. And so what I mean by like, how could we be part of the solution? I think connectivity for these devices is tough. Like every single, like, I don't know, I have like a different brand refrigerator than I do my dishwasher, than I do my like water, hot water boiler, and versus like my washing machine. And all of them have their own like apps. Actually, I don't have any of the apps, to be honest, like as a personal user. But like, they all have their own apps and they all have their own like ways to integrate, connect to the internet. You have to connect your Wi-Fi network to it. It's your one Wi-Fi network that you have in your house. You really want to do that. I think Helium actually provides an alternative here, which is LoRaWAN is, low cost, so good for them. They can put cheaper electronics in their hardware. It's wide range, so in a city you don't need to add another gateway anymore. In pretty much any city in the world, there's 70,000 cities in the world have coverage. That is, I think, really, really a lot easier to onboard a device in your house if you don't actually have to onboard it. You literally just plug it in and you press a button and you say, yes, I want this to be onboarded, right? Like if you can affirm, like as long as that affirmative opt-in is there, I think it actually works much better to just use the Helium network for these. I'd love to see, Helium enabled washers and dryers and things like that, as long as I don't get a push notification every time, like, the door opens or something insane like that.
Not everyone needs to be an engineer to use a household appliance. Yeah, it's a good idea.
It's completely unnecessary. Yeah.
Adoption-wise, most of the nodes for now for the Helium network are in North America and Europe. It's not really surprising, but there's still lots of ways to improve the coverage. And are there any plans to, I don't know, conquer the African or Asian market, for example?
Absolutely. I think then there's different things that we're trying to do in each of these markets. I mean, I think in Asia, one of the advantages of most of Asia, at least to separate India and China, is that most of the rest of Asia agrees on a single frequency standard. Like a lot of these radio things get a lot easier if there's a single standard around the world. That's like Wi-Fi is a perfect example. Like adoption was like that because we have one standard, right? And we're going to see this again with Wi-Fi 6E, which is a brand new spectrum that's going to be added to the Wi-Fi kind of toolkit that we all have. As long as all of these countries sort of align on like, yes, that frequency range, we will absolutely let everything run in that space. We'll see that, I think, a lot more global adoption when we have sort of standardization. So Asia, I think, is a lot easier. And we haven't spent a ton of time trying to grow Asia actively. But we know that there are a lot of hotspot manufacturers that are trying to do this. And we'd love to support them to sort of expand into these areas. I mean, India, is another really, really important market. They have their own frequency plan for IoT, but I think it's an enormous market. So I think it's there's a lot of opportunity there, and I think something around like 5 to 7% of all data traffic on the Helium network today is actually in India, and with zero effort, which is actually like maybe we should put some more effort in that as what I would think. And I think Africa is an sort of as a continent still doesn't have standardization around frequencies and having a single regional frequency. The value of regional frequency is that like if you have a sensor that moves from country to country, which will often happen, you want to have connectivity to be consistent, right? And you don't want to have things, you don't have to have multiple sensors for these things. And so that is something that we're also trying to work on in Africa to try to standardize the frequencies of those areas, or at least propose some standards that then, I ultimately, I think the countries themselves should decide, right? Like I do believe very strongly in sort of self-sovereignty, all the way to the individual, right? So I think that is ultimately their decision on whether or not they want to standardize. So I think that we are interested in growing in these areas. The other thing that's baked into the network, and I think important to note, is that the incentivization model for creating coverage is actually scaled based on the density. It's a terrible idea to put a hotspot in San Francisco. So if you live here, or actually even in many of the major cities in France as well, probably a bad idea to put a new hotspot in. I would rather you actually just like use the network because there's plenty of coverage available to you, right? And so I think that is something that I think is sort of really, really important and sort of a core to the network. I don't think it's perfect, and I think it should be iterated upon. I think what do people really care about, especially when you have very, very dense networks, or presumably dense networks, because it's permissionless. You can put a hotspot anywhere and claim it's there. But like when you have this presumed density, you want to make sure that you have some kind of SLA. So I think I and other people in the community have been pushing this idea of let's align not only like density as a key part of how you're rewarded for new coverage or maintaining coverage, but also some concept of an SLA where you are essentially putting something at stake to say that you're going to continue providing coverage, and if you don't, you could get slashed. And I think that's something that blockchains and have we've done in our ecosystem, we've done a lot of research around incentivization, and then and I think we can apply some of the things that the wider blockchain ecosystem has done, within the Helium network as well. And so I think that's something that we should be considering. Nothing yet, nothing official, of course. No HIP has been proposed yet to be, is the way that I would say it. But something that definitely people are discussing, trying to figure out. And I think over the next couple of months, I think you'll probably see some changes to the incentivization model because of it.
Okay. Maybe a little question about the Helium mobile network. Just one, but because the IoT still remains a somewhat abstract things for many people, but the mobile phones definitely are something everyone can understand. So regarding the mobile coverage in less populated areas than than San Francisco, if needed, would the Helium Foundation invest in its own infrastructure so as to offer a better coverage in some places? Because if I understand it correctly, for now, the network is fully made of retail-owned device, more or less. So obviously, it's not necessary for the IoT part of the things that you necessarily invest in, but for the mobile part, does the Helium Foundation plan to invest in its own infrastructure?
We will never be a sort of operator as a foundation. I think ultimately we are, our job is not to compete with our own community, right? Like that's to be direct, right? Like if we started,
it's pretty clear, and I found it's really honest answer, so no problem. But I'm asking because as you know, there's some foundations and some Web3 projects that are helping their own infrastructure. When you're scrapping it from zero, it's not necessarily surprising to, let's say, to support it from inside. But yeah, of course. Okay, so no investment and no participation, no active participation from the Helium Foundation.
Well, what we do instead, so there's two sort of ways that that we're a little different, I think. One thing to maybe note is a lot of the foundations of other sort of crypto projects out there, they're funded by a massive pre-mine that they were able to sort of negotiate or maybe sort of bake into the economics of the network. That's not the case with the Helium Foundation, right? There was no pre-mine, and we are not the wealthiest sort of wallets on the network by any means. In fact, we've sort of, our position and my position has always been we should be mining and earning alongside every other hotspot deployer, every sensor manufacturer, every sort of party in the ecosystem that wants to participate. We should be like building alongside and growing alongside. We're structured as a US nonprofit 501c6. What that means specifically is like we're like a trade organization. So we have members, and we're launching our membership program actually fairly soon. I think we finally have a final draft of it. We're going to publish it on our website fairly quickly. And that's how we are funded. We're funded by our members ultimately. So it's a little different than a lot of other crypto ecosystem foundations, I would say. That said, we do have grants programs, and we do want to be able to support. So that's the other way that we can support the ecosystem.
Yeah, my question will be just on this grant program. How did it work? How to apply for a grant? And for example, which do you think were the best projects that got funded this way as of today?
Sure. So, I think our grants program has been a way for us to identify public goods that are needed in our ecosystem, and that's ultimately what we try to fund. We try to fund either open source projects or public goods projects that are benefiting the entire ecosystem as much as we can. So I think like some of the grants that have been supported been very, very successful. I think were really around anything that like is public infrastructure for users of the network. Those have been very, very, I think, very successful. We have several events grants. Then there are much smaller grants, of course, and something new that we started this year that allow more ecosystem participation. Like let's make sure that there's a meetup in Chicago or in France or in Southeast Asia or wherever in the world. Like we sort of support these sort of events in a small way to sort of help people like come together and build communities. Like ultimately, Helium is about building local communities, right? And so we want to support more of these local communities to be formed. And so I think those are the kinds of grants that have done very well. The best way to sort of participate in this is helium.foundation/grants is the website. You can sort of see the kinds of grants that we're currently supporting. And then we, obviously if there's something that fits in this concept of a public good that isn't in there, I'm open to talking about it. Like, I think, ultimately, like we just need to understand the size and the scope. And so there are lots of teams out there that have come to us and said, we think that we can support this ecosystem in this particular way. Is this the right time? And sometimes the answer is yes. And we're happy to have those conversations with folks.
What are the future goals of the Helium Foundation for the next month, for example? And for someone who today is listening to us and is saying, so, okay, how can I get involved in maybe building on the network, things like that? So what are your plans for the next month? And how someone who is interested in could contribute?
So my number one metric that I care about, and it's the metric that I look at every single day, is data usage, right? And so ultimately, like, it's nice to have a single metric, a single utility metric that you can go back and look at. And like, we want to make sure that there are more users on the network and more, there's this tremendous IoT network that's been created. We want to make sure that that is number one. A close second, third, fourth items are things like, making sure that we can enable ongoing conversations around governance. Although we are, we're sort of technical experts in our ecosystem, we're not the only ones that are inventing things in our ecosystem. So as new proposals come in, we want to make sure that they get the right kind of discussion. Things around. We've actually been very, very strong in the allowing the community drive governance as much as possible, and I think we can continue to do better here. And that is something that we try to spend time on and improve. We also try to support the ecosystem by finding new users and enabling new kinds of users in the network. So, recently announced that Deutsche Telekom launched a IoT platform that integrated Helium, and that's that should enable a lot more usage of the network. We think to have kind of a sort of premium product that you can pay for, and it's definitely more expensive than some of the options that are out there in the ecosystem. But if you're a company that is not as price sensitive but do care about that sort of relationship with a party that is sort of established like Deutsche Telekom is, like, I think that is that enables new kinds of usage. So like, how can people get involved is use the network. It's sort of the simplest thing. Find the applications, find the use cases, and then if you're in an area that doesn't have coverage, grow the network for sure. Like that, as you said, there are parts of the world, and there will always be parts of the world that don't have enough coverage. Let's make sure that they have coverage. Ultimately, I want to have, to all of us to have a ubiquitous, affordable network.
Yeah, okay. We will share the useful link in the description of this video, I think, so that people can try to see how it works and how to get hotspots and things like that. So pretty cool.
Cool.
Maybe a more classical question for the end of this interview. Are you hiring at the moment at the Helium Foundation?
We are. So we have a fairly small team, 27 right now, soon to be 28. And we're hiring, right now we're hiring somebody on the governance side specifically. Like I spend a lot of my time on governance because I think it is that important that, we spend our time on it. So I would like to, someone who's sort of more of a product operations sort of manager of the governance process. They're not necessarily responsible for the multi-sig in any way, or any of the sort of those aspects. Are really more responsible for the community, making sure proposals are heard, making sure that the authors of these proposals have the right technical context to sort of understand how to implement something like this. They have some idea of, like, is it a one-line code change, or is it a multi-month project? Like, understanding technical scoping and getting buy-in from engineering teams from the ecosystem, I think is really, really important. So someone who's focused on that is something that we'd love to hire, and we'll continue to hire more folks over time. And we have our careers page on helium.foundation, and then there's like ecosystem teams out there that are also hiring. And I think one of the things that I would like to do, and it'd be cool if actually somebody in the community builds this, so here's another idea, is actually like a cross ecosystems jobs page, right? Like that aggregates like all the different companies that are building in the ecosystem that are looking to hire, both like on a short-term basis, like kind of gig work, or like long-term full-time as well. I think that'd be pretty cool to see in the Helium ecosystem.
Okay, yeah. And maybe to finish, do you have a message for the French community listening to us?
Sure. I mean, I'll start with the simple thing, which is Laurent started in France, right? So, like there's a lot of incredible, kind of users of the network, builders of network, and community members in our network from France. This one party, his handle is Dis91. His name is Paul. He is a huge supporter of Helium and of IoT in general. And I'd love to highlight him. I think he's follow him if you sort of want to have someone sort of more local to you that's telling you about Helium. And I think he is definitely one of these champions that sort of tells you some all the good and the bad. Like I think it's important to sort of highlight the sort of all the sides of this. And that's like I sort of appreciate his approach. I consider him a good acquaintance and a good friend. So like I think for the French community, it's the same as the rest of the world. I think, especially the areas that are very well covered, use the network, it's there. And then, it would be very, very interesting. And I've seen some interesting examples of this, of smart agriculture practices, specifically around in vineyards. And, that's something that I personally, as a consumer, would love to see, because, yeah, definitely buy a lot of French wine.
Voilà, donc on arrive en fin d'épisode. N'hésitez pas, si vous avez des questions, à les partager. Comme d'habitude, on y répond rapidement. Vous aurez tous les liens utiles en description de la publication de cette vidéo. Et donc, eh bien, Abhay, thank you again for your time. Merci beaucoup. Et à bientôt.
Thank you. Merci. Yeah.